Habits. Everybody's got them. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. Some of them we want to keep, and some of them we want to get rid of. My name's Jay Thompson, and I want to thank you so much for taking some time to kind of dive into the deep end of understanding habits. Spend just a few minutes on Google today and type in habits, and literally tens of millions of articles will come up that are going to talk about thoughts, opinions, ideas, practices, and principles when it comes to habits. There's so much out there. What happens many times is we get so overwhelmed, we get confused, and don't know where to start when it comes to understanding how to manage our habits. What I want to do today is I want to share with you one simple practice that will help you begin to address the habits in your life. It's called microstepping. Now, before I get into that, I want to make sure we're all on the same page when we understand what we mean when we say habits. Now, scientifically speaking, about habits is this. A habit is a neural pathway that is used repeatedly that creates an automated response in our life. Practically speaking, what is a habit? Something that we do that we don't even have to think about. So when we talk about habits, the question is this, not just what is a habit, but why do habits even matter? Well, I wrote this down that most of our actions and honestly to a lesser extent our attitudes are on automatic. They are our habits. And what we have found is this, is that if we can learn to engineer our habits, then we can ultimately learn to engineer our lives. So our habits make us. And if we want to have the life that we want, we've got to learn how to make our habits work for us. So how do we start with this habit engineering process? It goes back to what I mentioned earlier, microstepping. 14 years ago for me, I set a goal that I wanted to hike the entire Appalachian Trail. I started that when I was 40 and 54 now. And over the past 14 years, I've completed about 1,500 miles. When I first started, the Appalachian Trail was very, very daunting. From Georgia to Maine is 4,606,510 steps from Georgia to Maine. And no matter what I did, no matter how much research I tried, there was no way to do the entire Appalachian Trail to complete all 4+ million of those steps in one step. What I found is it took one step at a time. That's how we begin to engineer or make the habits that we want in our life. It's one step at a time. It's micro-stepping our habits. So what does micro-stepping our habits look like? Well, this is what I want you to do. I want you right now on a piece of paper, I want you to think about what is one habit that you want to create or engineer, if you will, in your life. Take a moment and write that down. For me, one of those habits that I wanted to do to kind of stay with this stepping theme is I wanted to have the habit of doing 15,000 steps every day. A habit, something I don't have to think about, that I know I'm going to do it regardless. That was a habit for me that I wanted to create. So that was the habit that I wrote down. Second to microstepping is then now you have to take that habit and you have to break it down in a ridiculously small portion, where it takes very little time and energy in order to do that. For me, I took 15,000 steps and I break it down to only 150 steps. My microstep, when I put it into a very, very ridiculously small amount, is 150 steps. And I do that every morning. That step that I do is I make sure that I get up in the morning, I take the leash, I put it on my dog Maggie, and Maggie and I walk 150 steps out of my door, of the front door, walk down the driveway, take a left, walk to the stop sign, and walk back. It's about 150 steps. So how are you going to micro-step your habits? Think of a habit that you want to create, and then put it in a super small portion, and then repeat it for 30 days. Do that micro-step every day for 30 days, and you are now beginning to create a new neural pathway in your brain of doing something in an automated way, in a habitual way. And when you repeat it for those 30 days, ultimately what happens is that new pathway is created in our life, is that we find then that we get from where we are to where we want to be in creating those habits. I wrote this down that once you have microstepped your own, whatever your 150 steps a day will be, then you can begin to microstep, take one microstep after another microstep, and eventually you have begun to engineer the habit that you desire. So much information out there about habits. Where do you start? It starts with microstepping. Keep on stepping, my friends.